Good evening. Well, we do have to talk about Tuesday, and we have to look forward to Sunday night. Welcome to Bulls of Red. And another warm welcome to Bulls and Red, our RB Leipzig podcast in English. We're at home in Leipzig, and this podcast is made for you. Did I say podcast? That's interesting. And this podcast is made for you wherever you are on this planet. And I would like to welcome the brain of the podcast, Richard. How are you tonight?
Hey, Mario. Thank you. I'm fine, all good. Friday night when we're recording. It's one of my favorite nights. You know, weekend around the corner. I can go to bed later than normal. And of course, you know, recording with you is always a pleasure.
Oh, you're so kind. Thank you for your warm words, and thanks for everyone who's listening in. Well, let's talk about Tuesday night. It was one of those Champions League nights, and to be honest, the ship had sailed. Der Zug war eigentlich schon abgefahren. There was a slight chance, a small chance, if we were able to beat Aston Villa to keep the hope alive, but that deteriorated. But still, the mood in the beginning was really good. It was excellent. It was the Europapokal chance all around. So the mood was quite light. The stadium seemed a little bit emptier than usual. There are a few more gaps there, and there were quite a few tickets still available. But the away section was filled very nicely, and I have to take my hats off to these people because, you know, there are no direct flights from Birmingham, and if you want to get into Leipzig, you either have to do charters, or you have to fly into Berlin and take a train or a car, or you have to fly via Frankfurt. And there was a famous former England player. He arrived from Newcastle. And in his show, The Rest is Football, in his podcast, he did complain that there are no direct flights from Newcastle to Leipzig. From Newcastle, come on. So he had to take a longer way route going via Frankfurt. It was, of course, Alan Shearer. And he also mentioned that it was really freezing. And Gary Lineker remarked, well, it's the old East Germany. And that sounded to me, okay, that makes sense, because the old East Germany, there was an association to the Soviet Union, and it was quite cold in the winter there. Right, Gary. Oh, maybe I got the wrong end of the stick here. So I really appreciated that we had a full away section of fans, and that was excellent. Did kind of fear that they were only singing when they're winning, and they were singing because they're winning. So at the end, they did really well. Now, RB Leipzig only started with 13, let me call this senior professional players, excluding goalies. And at the end of the day, they only made 3 substitutions. If you compared the benches of both teams, ours was a bit small with 3 senior players being out there, plus 3 under-19s. And when the game started, and Aston Villa, of course, scored in the second or third minute, I thought that was Wolfsburg in disguise. Because it seemed to me like a déjà vu. After 16 minutes, I was still relieved that the score was still 1-0 Aston Villa and not 3-0 like with Wolfsburg. But you could see from the start that Aston Villa wanted it more. They may have had more power as well. And I liked the way they were playing, and especially Ollie Watkins, Rodgers, he had a really good night. And of course, McGinn scored the first goal. And the way they played, they reminded me of what you said before. And I hope I get this right, Richard. You mentioned when RB Leipzig was playing St. Pauli, they were pressing in a smart way. And I thought Villa did that on the night. There was always some players approaching the player of RB Leipzig who had the ball. We didn't have the time to pass it around. Still, my feeling was RB Leipzig was fighting. There was one team, so it wasn't that bad. And that's why I didn't appreciate when people in the middle of the first half started booing. And that was because RB Leipzig wasn't playing the straight ball forward. They were playing back to find a way to get forward. They have limited resources, maybe limited quality as well. You never know. I think the big difference on the night was the firepower that Aston Villa could bring on from the bench. Well, they made 5 substitutions, they made 3, and they brought people on like Barkley and John Duran, who scored a beautiful second goal for Aston Villa. I'm not sure about Pete, if he should have gotten that one. some people might say that it looked that way. And of course, the winning goal for Villa was the deflected ball from Klosterman. It just come on a couple of minutes before that. That was a bit unlucky. But still, what impressed me about RB Leipzig afterwards, even with the limited resources or quality, they were fighting. And they were fighting as one team. And there was nobody who let off, who stopped. Seiwald, as a defender, I thought he was great. I was impressed by Nusa. Although some people may not value that much, but I think he's really grown into his role. Vermeeren was okay as well. But at the end of the day, I mean, the two goals that RB Leipzig scored were cheeky. I mean, the first one was brilliant. And when Seiwald hit that long ball towards the penalty box of Aston Villa, I yelled, "There is nobody!" Well, of course, there was goaltender. And he sneaked into that gap between the goalie and one of the defenders, who just had a little argument who would take the ball or not, or one expected from the other. It was a misunderstanding, and he took advantage of that brilliantly. And also the equalizer for the 2-2 in the second half, that was sheer power. They forced it in. They were there at the right moment. And, Leipzig scored 2 goals. And before that, Aston Villa only had scored 1. But to be honest, they deserved the win. You always felt that they wanted it more. They had more power. They brought more power from the bench, and they're a real class quality team. They have a really good season at the moment. And John Duran, when he hit that second goal, that was pretty similar to the one he hit versus Southampton in the league just a couple of days earlier. So at the end of the day, I don't hold no grudges, to be honest. I felt highly entertained. It was a cracking match in the second half, especially. And that's why. Because they acted like one team and they showed fighting spirit. That's why my mood was not as devastated as I thought I would be. Well, partly, of course, as well. 2 factors. One was, even with 9 points, I think it would have been not very realistic to progress anyway. So that was done and dusted already. And second of all, it was that match versus Frankfurt in the Cup. And to still be able to look forward to a quarterfinal for next year. So there is still something that we can look forward to without being fearful. And maybe that sort of softened the touch a little bit. And when I checked on the reactions around the block, there were some people, of course, who always are impatient when RB Leipzig plays, even at good times, even if they have a great game. If there's a pass which doesn't work out, well, there are people who complain, and that's okay. It's like when we watch Germany or RB Leipzig playing, we're like our own coaches. We know better, and of course we don't. I think I actually turned around to one of them and told him, well, if you can take a better free kick, go down there and try it out. Well, set pieces were diabolical, I admit that. And there was something else I discovered on social media, on Twitter. Somebody posted a tactical error of RB Leipzig, and that is true. And they called it disastrous. And they have a point there. That is true. But at the moment, it doesn't have anybody. Really, it doesn't. They know best what they've done wrong. They know that in situation, they didn't have the right choices. They didn't execute well. They know that. But because they are still fighting, because they're still acting as one team, and they are a depleted squad, and they have turned things around before, I am still optimistic. Ask me again after the 2 next matches we have when we play Frankfurt. I think all eyes have to be in Frankfurt. We need to get the 3 points, and hopefully we're not gonna get slaughtered by Bayern München just before Christmas. Ask me about then. If then we're in a worse position. Okay, but right now I'm still hopeful. I'm still hopeful that there's going to be a turnaround next year. But the club and the management has to learn from this. We need a better squad. We need a bigger squad. And there are more and more games, more and more matches to be played. And to be honest, in hindsight, they should have planned for that, in my view, because Champions League are more matches. Now we're going to drop out. The next 2 matches are worthless for us. They are an experience, and I hope in the next match versus Lisbon, they're going to play Paulsen and Silva in front. I just want to see that. And you're going to have a great trip to Austria, aren't you? Hopefully there's snow and you can build a snowman. And if we had progressed to the last 16, or even to those strange playoffs, and then to the last 16, that would have been 4 more matches. Plus all the international breaks that we have with the Nations League, and we've come off a European Championship, and we had this promotional tour to the US, and that's going to happen again. I'm sure that's going to happen again next summer. And thank God we're not going to this Club World Championship. We don't have to send anybody there. If things like this happen right now, and you got 8 players who are injured, and well, now we got 7 players who are injured and 1 suspended, this can always happen. So I hope they learn from this. Maybe City has a similar problem, I don't know. But I hope they learn from this going forward. And I'm sure in the next couple of weeks we'll be talking about what they can rescue for the rest of the season. But right now, I'm just relieved they're fighting, and I expect that on Sunday as well. And we're going to talk about this on our match versus Frankfurt. And we just have to be patient. And if people have different ambitions about the club and they expect differently, that's fine as well. But it's not going to help. The best way we can influence performances is trying to give support. If it goes pear-shaped in the second half of the season, well, feel free. Don't come in, or just yell and shout. You can do that. But right now, it was a cracking game. They were fighting. I think the confidence didn't take a knock. I think that was important as well. If they had been slaughtered 5-1, similar to Wolfsburg, I wouldn't be talking like this. But I believe they can get their acts together and make Frankfurt fight, and hopefully with the better end for us, but we'll see that. And whatever happens will happen. So there you go. It was still an enjoyable night. Congratulations to Aston Villa. Your campaign has been impressive, and also your campaign in the league as well. And we wish you all the best for the rest of your campaigns. And hopefully see you again in different circumstances. Better for us. Sorry about the monologue. But yeah, over to you, Richard.
Well, as always, thank you. It's been a pleasure listening to you because, I think you were really on point here, especially when you mentioned there's very likely a little lag in quality. So I think you just said it isn't a style of a question, but I think, it's clear and obvious that there is a lack of quality. So, or at least if we are missing our top quality players like Xavi and Raum, we are not able to replace it properly. And on top of that, I think Baumgartner is a little bit out of his very best form he could be in. And Schlager has to come back and he will need some more weeks. But, the interesting thing here is I texted you, I think just after the game started. So, obviously it wasn't in a stance poorly, but I texted you some interesting thing I found out just before the match started. And it was, I summed up the playing minutes of the starting 11s of both squads. And I found it interesting that the players of Aston Villa, the starting 11 from Aston Villa, had 14,300 and something, or was 14,600 something minutes. And the 11 players for RBL had 14,300 and something. So if you argue that we're running out of players, and the players we still have that are left have to play more games and more minutes than they usually would, well, Aston Villa seemed not that shy or short of personnel, and even have more minutes played already. And I know there are more competitions in England. Okay, that's true. So they very likely have more games to play. But on the other hand side, a minute is a minute is a minute. And I don't care personally if you're playing like 90 minutes in 2 games, so 45 minutes each, or if you're playing 90 minutes in 1 game. So for me, that's pretty much the same. Because, that thing that makes you tired is playing football, playing on the pitch. And so what do I want to say here is it's not that our players should be tired or running out of gas because they're playing so much, because this is obviously not the case. So it must be some lack of quality, and the front office and all the people who runs this business and are responsible for building this roster has to issue that in the upcoming off season. Yeah, because you said it, there are more games in the Champions League, and hopefully the next season more to come, or even if it's just the only in quotation marks only Europa League, still 2 games more and still hopefully more games in a knockout stage. And we need more personnel, and I think we need a little leap in quality. Because situations like now can happen, okay, that you have some issues with injuries, like 5, 6, 7 players. And even if this should happen to 2 or 3 key players, you have to come up with some solutions here. And we're running out of solutions, and that cannot happen again if it is our approach, if it is our purpose, the purpose of the club being the top shelf of the Bundesliga and always like in the top 8 to 12 clubs in Europe. So my 2 cents on this.
Yeah, and partly I can support this thesis partly by what I mentioned before, by repeating that. Aston Villa had more power from the bench, more quality, but also numbers. Because RB Leipzig only had 3 subs. They had 5 subs, and they brought on, John Duran, and they brought on Barkley. So it's about the quality. It's about the quality in the squad they had already, and the quality they could bring on as well. I think in terms of the quality of the squad that was on the pitch from the start with RB Leipzig, we're not that far off. But it's simply not enough at the moment. Okay, shall we close this topic?
Yes, come on. Looking forward. It's always more enjoyable.
Okay, let's look forward.
Introducing our next opponent, der Gegnercheck.
A short one.
Erbarmen, zu spät. Die Hesse komme. Again.
Again, yes. Eintracht Frankfurt is coming to town again. And last time we beat them 3-0. It's not that far away. I think it was the 4th of December.
It was beautiful.
It was not even 2 weeks. Yeah, it was
emotional.
Beautiful night. We talked about that. And it seems like Eintracht Frankfurt is running out of gas a little bit towards the end of the year. So now 3 winless games now. They had 7 wins in a row. Then they lost to us in the DFB Pokal, and then they only drew against Augsburg, the next home game in the Bundesliga, and now lost at Olympique Lyon yesterday night, 3-2, and the second goal of Frankfurt came late in the game. So it was pretty much most of the time they were trailing by 2 goals because the 2 goal lead came early in the second half for Olympique Lyon. And well, I watched this game at least partly, and to me it seemed Topmöller is somehow struggling to find the proper starting 11 right now. I don't know why. I don't know why it is, but just to take a look what he tried versus RBL in the DFB Pokal match, and now he changed his squad on a few positions. So he had Mario Götze on the right side in the DFB Pokal, and that obviously didn't work out. It didn't work well. So yesterday he had to play on the left side. Well, to me, it wasn't really better. Left defender was Rasmus Christensen, who was just overwhelmed more than one time when he had to defend against Openda and Šeško. And yesterday he tried Nkunku. So not, of course, our former player, but there's a guy with almost the same name. It's the same spelling, although its letters are slightly different. And yesterday it was Nkunku who had to defend on the left side. It was hilarious. Oh my gosh. It was just either not his night or he's just not okay in that position. And you can go on. You had Robin Koch and Tuta in the center defense. Yesterday it was Robin Koch and Arthur Theate, and Tuta had to play in the defensive midfield. So a lot of changes within just 3 games. Only this Augsburg match was in between. And the results that came out for Frankfurt in those matches wasn't what they had in mind, obviously, because, 2 losses and 1 draw. So I don't know what to expect from Topmöller Sunday night, but I think one thing is certain, he will change again, and he won't send up the nearly the same squad that he showed up Wednesday 10 days ago, because obviously this didn't work properly. Talking about the Frankfurt squad, there are obviously those magnificent strikers, Etiketi and Omar Mamouche, although I think there's still of course top shelf Bundesliga players here, but in the recent games, I won't say that they're struggling, but it seems like they're a little bit back to normal, to the normal levels, because I think it's Mamouche who had 13 goals already in the Bundesliga alone. I didn't add what he had in the DFB Pokal or in the European competition, but this is a huge amount and much more than he had shown us in the past. And I was like, okay, this is something we will see. It's going to be interesting if for him personnel, or if the Frankfurt squad will be able to hold up this pace. And obviously, it seems that they are not. Still, it's their, I think, best choice. Send out both those. And although I think when they started with Ekitike. I'm sorry about that. I pronounced him twice wrong. It's Ekitike.
Ekitike.
Yes. And Mamouche. And I'm pretty sure that we will see those both lads in the up front again.
Mm-hmm.
And it's nevertheless dangerous. But, it seems like that their defense is somehow shaky, and that's why the Dino Topmöller started experimenting a bit. That should be something we keep an eye on, keep and focus on, and try to figure out who is the weakest part in the upcoming match, and then try go for it. And if it's Nkunku again, go for him, or go for Christensen. And even in Mr. Collins, I think it's a young man from the US. They're playing right back.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he is a high quality player with a high upside potential offensively. But it's somehow yesterday he had some 2 or 3 scenes I recognized where he was just a little bit off mentally. He had some issues controlling the ball on the sideline, and then the ball just went over the sideline. So it was a throw in for Lyon, and they make the game fast. So had a really fast throw in, and before Collins knew what was happening, his opponent was just like 4 or 5 meters away. And we talked about it often in the past. You cannot let go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5%, because this is way too much in the Bundesliga, or at least in every top professional sports. You have to be focused all game long, 24/7. And if you don't, and if you do mistakes, you have to pay the price. And it's almost always goals conceded. On the other hand side, our personnel or the situation, it's not getting better. Arthur Vermeeren, booked. Booked, received his 5th yellow card versus against who? What was the last opponent?
Kiel?
I forgot it.
Was it Kiel?
Yes, it was Kiel. It was an ugly game as well. He received his 5th yellow, and today it was reported that who's out?
Haidara. Yeah, he was taken off at halftime on Tuesday.
Yeah, for the rest of the year. Not the season. It was the rest of the year.
Yeah, it's not that long, but still.
Not that long. But still. So, well, Schlager's back. This is good. And now, thank you for reminding me that Vermeeren received his 5th yellow card, because, I have to get prepared a little bit better. Last episode, I told everyone, hey, Schlager is coming up against Villa. Yeah. And as soon as we ended the recording, I was like, oh, he isn't eligible because due to his injury, he wasn't reported as a player by the RBL front office to the UEFA. So anyway, in the Bundesliga, he is eligible and he is good to go. And I expect just not yet. Please do this little clip.
Liebe Fußballfans, wir kommen jetzt zu unserer heutigen Mannschaftsaufstellung.
Okay. I think it's now the 3rd or 4th time I say it. Last man standing. Again, or still, or just whatever you want to call it. So, but please, come on. We had the 3 center back formation against Frankfurt, and I don't care what Dino Topmöller thinks about here. I think we should do the same approach. So please bring our 3 center backs. Gulaschi in the goal, and Gertruida, Orban, and Seiwald. And then the 5 lads in midfield. Henrichs Schlager, eligible. Baumgartner Kampel, healthy again, hopefully good to go for 90 minutes. And Nusa, of course. And Šeško and Openda. Although, well, maybe we will see Andre Silva instead of Šeško.
Could be.
Would not surprise me because, well, some like Eintracht Frankfurt revenge game.
I never thought of it. You're right.
Why not? Why not? Okay.
Crazier things happen before, But do you think Sava is ready to start? Well, he had a rest, didn't he?
Born ready.
Born ready, yeah. Born ready. So, what do you predict in terms of score?
Come on, play it again, Sam. 3-0.
Wow. Now, this time 2-1, but the 3 points are going to stay in Leipzig. They have to stay in Leipzig.
Yeah. We have a chance here because Frankfurt is struggling with its form. And, if we had faced them like in mid-October, there would have been a much harder task than now. And 2 more games this year, I think we need at least 3 points out of those 2. And I don't see any real chance getting something out of nothing at Munich. So Sunday is the time. Come on, 3 points.
I'm going to be there, and we're going to be shouting and yelling and supporting the team. And I'm sure you will do as well. This has been Bulls and Red, our RB Leipzig podcast from Leipzig. We're at home in Leipzig, and this one is made for everyone. Wherever you are on this planet, you can follow us on our socials, send us an email. It's podcast@bullsandred.com. We would love it if you subscribe to our little podcast. And we would also love it if you tune in again and also check our little advent calendar, which we publish or release on a daily basis as we count down the days to Christmas. Have yourselves a good weekend. Hopefully Sunday will be a good night. Danke, Richard. And we like to conclude with Auf geht's, Leipziger Jungs!